Yo, what's going on, guys? And today, just woke up. Shout out Mike Scotto. We're gonna kind of react, and I'm gonna also change some picks in this draft class. But basically, the G League showcase happened, and I typically don't start my draft classes till February, March, just because that's when I have a lot more information on college basketball and international prospects. But Mike Scotto with Sam Vecini, Mike Scotto and Sam Vecini are two very good draft experts. That if you guys want two draft experts that you should rely on, that I rely on, that I have found to be rather good, and those are Mike Scotto of Hoopshype.com and Sam Vecini of The Athletic. Now, we're going to be here reacting to Mike Scotto. He was at the G League Showcase, and let's talk about what he saw. Obviously, this was headlined by Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson. Scoot Henderson was out with injury, but people were saying he was insanely vocal. He was incredible to watch on the bench as a leader. And now, this is from what my understanding is, they compiled on Hoopshype.com to get a better projection of where all the top prospects currently stand. Hoopshype.com compiled 10 mock drafts from ESPN, The Athletic, Bleacher Report, NBADraft.net, Sports Illustrated, CBS Sports, SB Nation, Yahoo, Basketball News, and US Today's for the win, as basically to create an aggregated mock draft to have a better answer. Obviously, number one, Victor Wembanyama. And do we even need to talk about this guy? We've talked about him so much. He's doing stuff. He's the best player in the French league as an 18-year-old. Okay, and he has a body similar to a young Giannis Antetokounmpo. Anyone who's going like, oh, what about Chet Holmgren and Kristaps Porzingis? They got hurt. First off, Chet Holmgren had, narrow shoulders than Victor. Victor has more broad shoulders, similar to Kristaps and Giannis, and he's probably going to try to fill out his frame similar to Giannis, where they keep that flexibility and that athleticism, while filling him up as much as possible. Whoever gets him gets a generational talent. Okay. Number two, we got ourselves Scoot Henderson. He didn't play, but what they were saying, they're saying Scoot Henderson has drawn comparisons to Donovan Mitchell, Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook, and John Wall. I would say Scoot Henderson is definitely a mix between Donovan Mitchell and Derrick Rose. I would say is the best. Again, I'm trying to get away from, always comparing players, because I feel like that's just not, players are their own selves, okay? Amen Thompson. This guy is literally, they're calling him Ben Simmons at 6'6". Doesn't really have a jump shot, but he's literally Ben Simmons with like an elite first step. Like, there is very few players, and he's more of a guard, Amen Thompson, while his brother's Asar is more of a wing, due to the fact that that's how they played growing up, that Thompson was the ball handler and Asar was the off-ball guy. But Amen Thompson, defensively, insane. And then his first step in the way he can attack the basket, insane. And that's why he's probably going to go third overall, because he's a shorter Ben Simmons with a quicker first step. And I want to see, I don't know if they've had anything. He's more of a point guard than his brother. Yeah, that's what I've said. Nick Smith, he's ridiculous. He's out indefinitely with a knee injury. But look, he's an insane scorer. I'm personally higher on Anthony Black. I like Anthony Black more than Nick Smith, because Anthony Black is a 6'7" point guard who moves like he's 6'2", okay? And that's why I have Anthony Black at 4. But right here, most mock drafts have Nick Smith at 4. I find Nick Smith more of a combo guard, more of a scorer, and he can pass, but I really think Anthony Black has a higher ceiling than Nick Smith, okay? I really think Anthony Black, this is a huge comparison, but Anthony Black seems like the under-the-radar prospect that Tyrese Halliburton was coming out of college. That's how I feel about Anthony Black. That's why I have Anthony Black over Nick Smith, but Nick Smith is a very good combo guard who's 6'5", but that knee injury. Over here, they have Ausar Thompson. I probably would have Nick Smith over Ausar Thompson, and the thing is that, yes, he's shooting 33% on 3.7 attempts. Again, he's the wing version. It's just when I look at Ausar versus his brother, I'm really going for Amen. Ausar's still a top 10 guy, but I see Ausar as more of a high-level starting caliber role player than while Amen Thompson can be a legit all-star. Brandon Miller, you just can't teach this shooting, 6'9". I would say that Brandon Miller Jabari Smith is clearly a power forward in a small ball 5. Brandon Miller is like kind of a smaller version of what Jabari Smith is. He's the 6'9" wing, okay, who can shoot over anybody, and he just shoots a ridiculous amount of threes. Like, look at this. He's shooting 44% on 7.5 attempts from downtown. That's ridiculous. Keontae George, oh my. Again, this is another guy that, like, it's hard to think about. Like, Brandon Miller, I obviously would have Nick Smith in front of there, in front of Asar Thompson and Brandon Miller. But Keontae George, I personally like more than Nick Smith because there's no injury concerns. And I think he's a really good player going out of Baylor where they play defense. And for me, that, like, they're telling here, multiple NBA talent evaluators at the G League Showcase say he's a top 10 pick. And I personally would take Keontae George over Nick Smith because he's coming out of a program like Baylor where they play defense. And second, the injury concern is not a concern as much with Keontae George. But again, another guy right here, Cassim Wallace. Like here, Nick Smith and Keontae George and Anthony Black should all be top 10 picks. But Cassim Wallace, he's a high-level role player in my opinion. And he's shooting well, but I just don't see this guy being like an all-star. I like Cassim Wallace, and I think he can be a great high-level role player. But my problem is he a shooting guard or is he a point guard? That's the big question with him. He's kind of a shooting guard with a point guard's body. Cam Whitmore is a guy that is top 5 in my opinion. Look, Cam Whitmore, he dominated, and he's returning from an injury, and he was viewed as a top 10 pick, close to top 5. And this guy coming out of Villanova, he's everything you want. This is a guy to watch, see him climb up. Now, Jarace Walker, he's a big boy. And he's a 3-level scorer, but he is huge. Okay, he's a 6'8" big, but he can do many things. And I really like him. And he's a guy who's crept up to the lottery, so expect him to go in the lottery. We're going to start doing these quicker. Here's my man, Anthony Black, 6'7" point guard. Okay, some people have him going 30, some people have 4. I love him. The guy's shooting 51% from the field, 39 on 3, and averaging 2 steals a night. Yeah, he's averaging 3 turnovers a game, but Anthony Black is a top 10 pick. I literally would take Anthony Black over Walker. I would take him, I don't know if over Whitmore, but Wallace. I would take him over Osar, Keontae George, and all those guys. This is probably my favorite prospect in the draft. One of my favorite prospects in this year's draft. Kyle Ware. You know, I like him. He's got some skills. He runs the floor well, but he's very, he's an NBA ready, kind of like how Mark Williams was coming out, NBA ready big. And, yeah. Derek, or is it Derek? It's Derek, right? Yeah, Derek Whitehead, right? Out of Duke, another 6'6" wing. And I'm not saying that he's similar to AJ Griffin, but they're comparing him to Lance Stevenson, but he's another wing out of there. Kind of like a guy whose game's in between RJ Barrett and AJ Griffin's, you could say. Another Duke guy, Gigi Jackson. Oh, God, this guy is tearing stuff up, okay? Like, he leads the SEC, and he's doing all these, he's literally climbing up draft boards because people are going to be like, oh, well, he's putting stats up on a bad team. No, he's putting up stats on a bad team while playing good competition and still putting up good stats. That's unreal, okay? And it's not really he's in a bad league. He's in the SEC, so it's not. So Quavian Smith, this guy was already a first-round pick in the 20s last year, but he went back to raise his draft stock. He's a 6'4" combo guard. He's going to literally follow the same lines as Tyrese Maxey, Emmanuel Quickly, like similar play style of those guys. He's also a great defender, and he shoots like 10 threes a night, okay? 10 threes a night. And he's also increased his assist to 5.5. Dylan Mitchell, this guy's massive. He used to be like 6'4", now he's 6'7", and he's insanely talented on defense. And Chris Beard really likes him, but we'll see where that. And then, of course, you guys know me. I go to the University of Kansas and Gradey Dick. I think this is a little high for Gradey Dick. Look, I like Gradey Dick. I think he's the best player on our team. And if he's a lottery talent, like, don't get me wrong, Gradey Dick's he's a swingman. He can create. Yeah, he's compared to Dante DiVincenzo. He's not as good as a rebounder as Christian Braun. He's a better player than Christian Braun. He's a better scorer than Christian Braun. Christian Braun is just a starting caliber role player, but, like, isn't going to become an all-star. Gradey Dick, I would say he is, at his best, he's like Max Strus. Like, at his worst, he's probably Max Strus. Or maybe at his worst, he's Duncan Robinson, but I think he's a more athletic Max Strus who can defend higher and create at a higher level. Max Strus would have been a first-round pick if we knew he was going to become this. Now, Rayan Rupert, who plays for the New Zealand Breakers, he's one of my favorite guys coming out, and he's 7'3" wingspan on that 6'6" frame, and he has this ability to shoot down threes. And we saw as Ousmane Deng, he's this year's Ousmane Deng, basically, big old wing coming out of the NBL. NBL does such a good job of finding prospects. Chris Murray, kind of the left-handed version of his Keegan, just not as athletic or score-minded, more of an off-ball guy. Then you got Derek Lively, just another big guy who, his game, he was like the number one recruit at one point, and it's just, again, his game's just limited. It's just going to be, I think he could develop into a similar guy as Wendell Carter Jr. Tyrese Proctor, he's a guard. Look, he's not bad. He's more of a defensive-led guard, and he's young. It's just the shooting and that form. Look at that form. Now, move on. Leonard Miller. This is a 7-foot point guard, bro. A 7-foot point guard who moved over to wing. Okay? He's averaging 15 on 50%. And yes, the problem is he's got this low release on his jumper and he's shooting 27.5%. But the quote is he'll either flame out as a talented kid who didn't figure it out, or it's gonna work. I love Leonard Miller. He almost went in the first round last year and then went back. Jett Howard's like one of the top guys at Michigan, and he's 6'8", and he's just got this insane athleticism. Sidi Sissoko, he was a guy who recently went here, and I'm pretty sure he's French. And he's a guy whose athleticism, probably a similar player, a wing version of like he's either going to be like probably a Naz Little, or he's going to develop into Naz Little, Demboya, or my comparisons at the very least. And then if he figures it out, maybe he'll be his own guy. Marcus Sasser almost went to KU, just a defensive-led guy, but he's older, so that's why he's not going to go as high. Then you got Kyle Filipowski, who's a tall, 6'11" big who shoots threes and anchors the D. Then you got yourself Arthur Kaluma, who is going out of Creighton. He's a multi-positional defender, and that three-point shot starting to show on. He's multi. Maxwell Lewis is a guy that I've taken an interest coming out of Pepperdine. Similar player to Kessler Edwards a few years ago, and he has some athleticism. Again, and Nikola Drusic is a guy coming out of Mega that I've kind of heard, and he's rising. And it's just he's struggling to shoot from the perimeter, but he's like this 6'6", like the 6'8", my apology, like poor man. They're trying to say he's like the poor bad Luka. I'm just kidding. But Julian Strother's another guy people have been excited about coming out of Gonzaga. Then Adem Bona, who plays for UCLA. Jamie Jacquez. Then you got Coleman Hawkins, Amari Badley, Jordan Hawkins. Let me hear your thoughts. That was it. Goodbye.